Hello, everybody. Uh, so we are back to our Not Forgotten Outreach live primes. There we go. Sorry, not sure about the very beginning of that video. I don't know if I started a few seconds ago or if I'm just starting now. But in any event, I'm back from vacation. We've been off for a few weeks. Not Forgotten Outreach is still functioning in their hybrid manner that is COVID appropriate. And so, therefore, we are bringing these services of um, psychological education, mental health education. These are a series of practical tools, awarenesses, skills, and resources that you can use to improve your life for the better. These aren't therapy, and but they are the education about how you can therapize yourself, how you can be your own best advocate. And so, my name is Michael Boyle, and we've been doing these for a while. If you haven't seen one before, go back onto the into the archives here and check out the previous videos if you'd like to. Otherwise, this session should stand alone by itself. You don't need to have seen the other ones. But we're going to just get started. We're going to be doing these on a regular basis for the time being while we're in COVID and trying to support us all in living the most healthy lifestyle we can live despite these odd circumstances that we're in. So, welcome. Please feel free to comment. Um, please feel free to send your questions in. Please feel free to contact us and let us know how these things are going for you and how we can make them more useful and applicable to your life, and how the tools that you're learning in these, how you're actually working with them in your life, and we can address them specifically. I can either answer your questions in the comments, or I can also address them via video anonymously, however you choose. So, without further ado, let's get started on this week's lesson, which is about priming. Anyone ever heard of the concept of priming? Well, maybe you've heard of it in terms of like priming a pump. All right. And so priming a pump is getting it ready to work, getting it ready to function, right? And so we can also prime our nervous system. And in fact, our nervous system is always primed. It's always being primed. And if you see me looking over here, that just means I'm referencing my notes just to make sure I catch everything in my lesson plan, okay? So priming is always influencing us. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just do a little quick, easy exercise about priming, okay? And so just randomly look around the room. No agenda. Just look around. Just notice what you notice. Okay? Just look around. Up, down, all around. Now, now look around after I mention noticing the color white. Now look around. And as you're looking around, as I talk about the color white, you are going to just see more white popping out into your eyes, into your consciousness, into your awareness. That white was already there, but now you're noticing it. So now switch to red. Look for red. Now all of a sudden, red is jumping out at you, right? Now all of a sudden, red is jumping out at you. So that's priming. That's a simple example. It doesn't have a huge emotional impact, that example, but that is happening all the time. Your nervous system is going to pick up, your mind is going to uh, pay attention to what it has been primed to pay attention to. So if it's been primed to pay attention to white, all of a sudden you're seeing white. It's not like the white wasn't there a minute or two ago. It's not like the red wasn't there a minute or two ago, but now you're seeing white. Now you're seeing red. Okay? Well, what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal about that is that our nervous system cannot possibly take in all of the experience that is available to it. There are millions of bits of stimulation coming in at any moment. So we have a function of our nervous system called the reticular activating system, which is responsible for filtering. And so what the reticular activating system does is it filters out and it says it's only going to pay attention to what it thinks is important. And so what it thinks is important is the reticular activating system does not have a morality built into it. It does not have, it's not, it doesn't care about what you want. What it deems important is whatever you have spent the most time thinking about, feeling, and acting on in your life. So your reticular activating system is set. It has a set point, basically, that says that it will continue to look for, it will continue to be primed to what it is already used to seeing. And one of the theories that I have about why this is the case is that whatever your reticular activating system's job is not to be happy. Your reticular activating system's job is to keep you safe, to keep you alive, right? Excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water. So your reticular activating system's job is not, it doesn't care about happiness, it doesn't care about what you want per se. It cares about survival. Its job is to have you survive. And according to this part of the brain, whatever you have already experienced up until now, you have survived by definition, right? Just pure logic. If you are alive in this moment, everything that has led up to this moment, you have survived. So your reticular activating system says, and especially everything that you've done most often, everything you thought most often, felt most often, and acted on most often, your brain says, that's safe. I can survive that. I already know how to survive that, right? We've heard about familiarity, right? Familiar, okay? But this is a for better or worse principle, because what if it's anxiety? What if you have 20 years of worrying and you think of worrisome thoughts and you feel worrisome sensations in your body and you have worrisome chemistry and neurology just streaming through your system? Well, your brain says, great, the reticular activating system says, okay, I can survive worry. Let's find more reasons to be worried. Worry is good. And if it becomes accustomed to worried, it becomes set for worried, then happiness or calmness or peace actually, ironically and strangely enough, to this part of the brain feels dangerous. It is unknown. It is unfamiliar. And therefore, the brain says, I don't know about this calm thing. I don't know about this safe thing. I don't know about this happiness thing. Let's find some more reasons to worry. Ah, yeah, that feels right. That feels familiar. That feels known. So priming is a huge principle, because the reticular activating system is always priming. It is always filtering, just like we look for white and we look for red. The reticular activating system is scanning the environment beneath our conscious awareness. This is pre-verbal, pre-conscious.
Okay.
It is.
I found this on the web for scaring the environment.
Sorry.
Check it out.
The Siri on my iPad on the floor just decided to start participating. So the reticular activating system is always filtering your experience, right? And so just like we looked around the room and all of a sudden we started seeing white, we started seeing red, well, we will actually find evidence to prove that whatever our reticular activating system is looking for, again, this is not a conscious or volitional thing, we will find evidence to prove that we are right about it. So if our reticular activating system is set for anxiety, it'll find reasons to be anxious. If it's set for anger, it'll find reasons to be angry. If it's set for depression, it'll find reasons to be depressed. Just like at the beginning, we found the white, we found the red. The white and the red was there. Now the converse is also true. And the positive side of this is also true. If your reticular activating system is primed for gratitude, say, or love, or kindness, well then guess what? If you go into the grocery store, and I know it's a little bit more challenging these days, right? We're wearing masks, but you can actually tell a genuine smile when someone smiles and their mouth is covered. Well, their eyes are going to go up in these like crow's feet here. well, then you know that they're really smiling, right? And you can tell in someone's eyes. We actually have a very sensitive mechanism in our system to understand whether someone is safe or dangerous, and we can really read body language well. But a part of that reading of our body language is how our nervous system is primed. If we're primed for, okay, I'm afraid of the world, I'm afraid of everything, well, then we're going to see reasons in the grocery store to be like, oh, to stay away from that or avoid this, right? And this stuff is even more challenging now with COVID because we really feel like, oh yeah, there really feels like a threat, in the air, right? Literally. So this doesn't bode well for happiness. So we, while being safe about COVID and all the things that we want to do to remain safe in terms of distancing and masks and washing and things like that, we don't need to suffer the difficulties of our brain being primed towards fear. And it's very common if you already have a history of trauma, if you already have a history of anxiety, then times like these can prime our brain even more to looking for and finding things to be afraid or anxious or frustrated about, or maybe feeling hopeless or helpless or depressed or discouraged. That is really normal, right? So remember, the reticular activating system is primed for our survival. It's not built for our happiness. But if we want to be happy, then we can start to influence it by priming it ourselves, okay? So priming is always happening. We can't stop priming from happening. Priming is just a law of nature in the way our nervous system as human beings works. But we can learn to prime ourselves, and we can learn to say, instead of going to the grocery store looking for the opportunities, looking for what should I be afraid about and being tense and closed and shut down, we can say, well, I wonder what it would be like to notice, the kindness of others, or to notice. And then all of a sudden now we're filtering, and and we set our nervous system to be looking for, oh, that person just helped that other person out. That person just held the door. Yeah, wow, even though the COVID's going on, these people are still smiling, right? Oh, yeah, like I can really see the glimmer in that person's eyes. They're smiling. They're making an attempt to connect with me, right? And so the experience of walking through the grocery store, as simple as and typically innocuous as that is really night and day difference. If you are primed for smiling and happiness and kindness and connection, you are going to experience that. And if you are primed for worry and anxiety and fear, you are going to experience that. So the question is do we prime ourselves, or do we allow ourselves to be primed by circumstances, by conditioning, by the past, by COVID? Again, that doesn't mean that we don't take safety measures, but I'm talking about the psychological, spiritual, mental, emotional side of things. We still can be physically safe and psychologically well and whole, right? And so most of the time, most people's reticular activating system, the priming system, is mostly dominated by the wounds of our past. Because again, the reticular activating system is designed to say, well, let me remember everything that was dangerous. You ever had that experience where like you had a pretty normal day and like some good things happen, some bad things happen, right? I mean, you come home to your partner or your family or a friend or something like that, and what's the first thing you talk about? The 3 awful things that happened. Even though maybe 10 or 15 or 20 things, positive things happened. Well, that's because that survival part of the brain is designed for focusing on what is negative. And so in psychological neurological research, we call this a negativity bias. So the brain has a built-in negativity bias. It is designed to look for what is dangerous. It is designed to look for what is a threat. It is designed to look for what is negative, because we evolved so that to say, well, that's the best way to survive. Again, who cares about being happy? The number one priority to the species is that we survive and procreate and evolve, right? And so happiness is a secondary concern. And it's actually not really a concern to the survival part of the brain at all. Now, thankfully, we have higher centers in our brain that we can access and activate, but they need to be activated consciously. They are the animal part of our brain, the reptilian and animal part of our brain is built just for survival. But the human part of our brain has components of it that can override some of those survival programs and upgrade the nervous system for happiness, which includes survival, right? So the animal and the reptilian part of the brain has survival that is not inclusive of happiness. But the human part of the brain has elements that have happiness that are inclusive of survival. So we don't need to be happy at the expense of being safe. In fact, quite the opposite. So we can utilize our brain the way it works. And what I'm teaching you is just like it's like learning how what's under the hood of your car. If you know how to, you know, vamp up your engine, well, you're going to get more mileage out of it. You're going to get more, a little bit more speed, a little bit more productivity. It's not going to break down as quickly. It's going to be healthier for longer. It's going to be more pleasant to ride in, right? And so that's the same thing with your nervous system. You can turn it up and activate these parts of your brain that are dormant, typically because they require conscious and deliberate activation. Because the default mode of the brain is survival. That's the default mode. That's like the program you buy your computer. Well, you get the default software. Well, but you might want to do some other things. You might need to upgrade your software. You might need to add in, Microsoft Office so you have some of the other products that you want to use. It doesn't come with the main operating system. Well, our brain comes built in with the survival program, but there are many upgrades that we can give it. Those upgrades, though, need to be deliberate and they need to be intentional. This exercise, this tool, this theory of priming that I'm teaching you today is one such way to upgrade our nervous system and to say that I want to prime myself for what I value and choose. I want to prime myself for the day that I want to have today. So every single morning, instead of just being kind of on autopilot and waking up and hitting the alarm and rolling over and putting the coffee funnel in our mouth and just kind of unconsciously going through their day, and if we are going through the day unconsciously, we are automatically going to default to the survival program that is automatically going to filter our experience by our past and what we've already experienced. So you ever notice that things kind of seem like the Bill Murray movie Groundhog Day? Same people, same stories, same emotions, same types of thoughts, same experiences, right? Most of us aren't going to travel vastly on a day-to-day basis, but it doesn't mean that we can't live our life with a sense of newness and freshness and excitement. But most of us, myself included, many days when I'm not cognizant of the need to prime myself for a fresher or newer experience, can just be kind of the same old, same coffee cup, same routine, same types of food, same types of arguments with people, same types of complaints and worries. Facebook, as much as we're using it as a positive tool here, try taking 6 months off of Facebook and come back and see, wow, nothing has changed, right? Well, that's because most people are living through the reticular activating filtering system of their survival brain, which prefers the repetition of what has already passed as a way to live life safe, to play life safe. But it's really a pseudo safe. It's not a real safe. It's just kind of the animal reptilian part of the brain just going, okay, that's cool. What is familiar? Let's just keep doing that. I don't care if it sucks. I don't care if it's anxious. I don't care if it's afraid. I don't care if it's angry. I don't care if it's depressed. Let's just keep playing those tapes over and over and over again. We got this. We know how to deal with that. I'm not sure about, learning and newness and freshness and love and intimacy and kindness and taking a chance on feeling positive and grateful about life. I'm not sure about that. And, in fact, every time I feel like I open up to that a little bit, I get hurt. Right? And so that's that all these stories that our reticular activating system is going to tell us to keep us living small, to keep us living safe, to keep us living based on the filters in the lens of the past. right? But we can recognize all that going on and start to question it and say, is it really true? Is it really necessary? And I think about the fact that there's enough evidence in the universe to prove anything. There's enough evidence that you want to look now on the internet, you want to look in the Bible, you want to look anywhere you want to look. You can prove every side of every story. So everyone's got enough evidence to prove their point of view, and everyone feels right about their point of view. So the question is it working for you? Is it useful? Is it producing emotions, thoughts, experiences that you actually want to have? Is your worldview, is your prime, is your filter, is the way you're seeing, looking, perceiving the world, is it working? Is it useful for you? Are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you thriving? Are you feeling love? Are you feeling joy? Are you feeling gratitude? Well, if you're not, then I suggest that you may want to tinker with your filter, unless you are okay with what you're feeling, right? So says who is a really good question. Says who says you need, well, we really should be worried about what's going on. Really? Says who? I had to have this reminder this morning from my wife because I have something going on with one of my kids right now that got me really worried, right? And she just, the old adage, well, what is worrying going to do to help? And in the moment, that was like, I know that's really pissing me off that you're saying that, right? But as I relaxed, as I breathed, as I decided to start to prime myself differently, then I started to notice, like, oh yeah, actually he's way better than he was yesterday. And he's actually, and I started to see more of the opportunities for health and thriving that were actually more encouraging and led into a more positive outlook. And then all of a sudden my nervous system started relaxing more and realized, like, oh, a big part of what I was doing is what I was seeing through the lens of the past worries that I've become accustomed and addicted to, and I was actually projecting them onto the present situation, and the present situation actually isn't that bad, right? And so these are the types of things that we do all the time. So do we really need to worry? If you're going to go to the grocery store right now, does worrying keep you more safe from COVID? If you, as long as you have your mask, you keep your distance, you maybe squirt some sanitizer when you get home, do you take your precautions, you do the things that you feel like you need to do to stay physically safe, or is smiling actually gonna be better for your immune system? Is breathing deeply and easily, is that not going to also be better for your immune system? Is connecting and communicating with others, is that also not going to be better for your immune system? Is getting out and getting some sunshine, getting some exercise, is that also not going to be better for your immune system? But when we are at the mercy of our survival part of the brain, it's going to have us go, and we're going to be breathing constricted, and we're going to say, oh, I just need to stay inside, oh, I just need to, and we will shrink our life down to what our survival part of our brain feels is safe. And actually it's actually not safe. It actually deteriorates our immune system. It deteriorates our quality of life. It deteriorates our health and happiness. So how can we prime ourselves to experience more of what we value and choose, more of what we want to experience? Well, we can do so by asking ourselves questions. We can do so by saying to myself, being curious, just wondering, well, what would it be like if I just, took 10 deep breaths before I went into the grocery store? And then I just decided, even though no one can really see it under my mask, to just smile. And that I'm just going to project a smile. I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to explore. I'm going to just wonder about, what if I just smiled at everyone that I saw, And sure, some grumps are not going to smile back. Some grumps are going to be like, who's that weirdo? What are they doing? Who cares? I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to find that more often than not, people are waiting for others to make the first move. And if you make the first move with the smile or the hello or the how you doing, you're going to get it back big time. And you're going to feel a sense of connection, a sense of togetherness, and we really need to foster this sense of connection and a sense of togetherness in times like these. This is a weird time. My son was asking me yesterday, is like, when was the last pandemic, Dad? I was like, I don't know. I've never experienced one. I've been alive 42 years. I've never heard my parents experience one. That's 75 years. So, I think around, 1918, right? So we're talking 100 years ago. These are rare times, and so we need to come together. We need to connect, and we need to find creative ways to do that. And one of the ways that we can do that is to prime ourselves to be more open and to be more loving and to be focused on what we're grateful for. For those of us that are healthy, we can be focused on that on our gratitude for our health, on for things that we can do about it, that we can recommit to eating well or exercising or getting some sunshine or going for hikes or calling someone or doing a Zoom meeting with friends, or all the things that we're doing here to try to find some peace and some sanity and some love and some joy in our lives these days. We have to be creative, we have to be resilient and resourceful. So priming ourselves is another such way. Okay, so do we prime ourselves or do we allow ourselves to be primed? This is another thing. If when we allow ourselves to be primed, what that means is that basically we say, "Oh, he made me angry, she made me angry," or that person, I was pulling into the parking lot and they cut me off. I'm pissed, and the rest of my day is well. One, we likely already have a reticular activating system that is set for anger. So we notice things that make us more angry. We notice that more of them, right? You ever have that friend that just like finds 10 reasons to complain about their day? Well, guess what? Their reticular activating is set to complain, right? It doesn't actually mean, well, it does actually mean that they're having more experiences that are complaint worthy, but they have something to do with that, whether they want to admit it or not. And you ever have that friend that just comes home and says, "Wow, it was a beautiful day. It was a great day." Well, guess what? They have an influence on that too. Now, sometimes that's not necessarily conscious or deliberate. Some people's reticular activating systems are set to be more joyful and jovial and grateful, and some are set to be more anxious or frustrated or worried, and they get set by lots of different things: our past, our trauma, our conditioning, our parents, the commercials, TV, pop culture, psychology, teachers, whatever. However, it's up to us as adults to say, wow, is the way my nervous system is set, is my filter set to what I value and choose? If not, then I can do something about that. Now, I happen to have a reticular activating system that was set pretty strongly towards depression and anxiety. So now, it is what it is. Those are the hands that I've been dealt. But it doesn't mean that I need to continue to buy into the stories of depression and anxiety. Instead, and I can start to shift my focus. So I can start to look for reasons and look for and pay attention to reasons to be grateful. Grateful is kind of like the master key, right? It covers everything. If you're feeling grateful, you're not going to feel angry. If you're feeling grateful, you're not going to feel anxious. And if you're feeling grateful, you're not going to feel depressed. But people say, well, but I just feel these other things. Well, just because you feel these other things, these anger, anxiety, depression, that's the survival part of the brain. It doesn't mean that it's true or that you have to keep feeling that way. It doesn't mean that you are obligated to feel that way. It doesn't mean that that's the only interpretation for that experience, right? So someone say, "Well, no, I was in traffic," and so first of all, let's just eliminate like big like traumatic events, but let's just talk about all the little things. Because big traumatic events, like maybe you can experience those with sense of equanimity and poise and still be really happy and thriving and grateful. But that's like next level challenge. On a day-to-day basis, we let tons of things perturb us that are really not a big deal, but they add up to a big deal, right? So if two people are sitting in traffic and one of them is gripping the steering wheel and cursing under their breath and punching their horn and giving people the finger, and the other person is, playing their favorite song, got the window down, smiling, singing at the top of their lungs, what's the difference? They're both in the same traffic. Well, this has to do with priming our filter. So the way we perceive reality is based on how our nervous system is primed. What we're learning about today is how you can prime your own pump by intentionally closing your eyes, and we can do it right now. I'm going to do it right now. Getting a good posture, sitting up straight, taking a deep breath, changing the chemistry. If you're breathing shallow and you're tense, guess what? Your chemistry is in a state of survival, which means your brain is going to look for things that are dangerous, things that are angering, things that are depressing. But if you change your chemistry, deep breathing, smiling on purpose, you can even fake it. You will change your neurology if you just smile for like a minute or two without even if you don't feel it at the beginning, you will start to feel it. And now all of a sudden, your chemistry has changed. The survival part of your nervous system is settled down. Now you are open to seeing, oh wow, the sky is beautiful. Man, I never noticed that color, green. I never thought about how amazing it is to see the cows. I'm looking out my window, and this is live. I'm doing this, right? So sometimes we just need to change our chemistry. We get very obsessed with trying to fix all the outer problems in our life. Sometimes we just need to change the chemistry, and the problems disappear. They dissolve. They resolve of their own accord. Have you ever been angry with someone, and then you just took a walk, or you took a shower, or you slept for the night, and then all of a sudden you weren't? Nothing about the situation changed? Well, we can do that on purpose more often with the problems in our life. Oftentimes it's just a matter of changing our own chemistry, priming our own pump. So again, coming back to closing the eyes, posture, taking a deep breath, maybe sighing. If you watch some of the initial videos, we did our fog breathing. And the fog breathing is extending the length of the exhale so that we can shut off the survival part of the brain, turn on the thriving part of the brain that is going to see more awesome potentials in our life. So I'm just extending the length of my exhale. Previous videos discussed the theory behind why that works neurologically. We don't have time to get into that today. We're about to finish up here. But in any event, I'm just going to take some time just to take 3 to 5 or 10 deep breaths. Sigh if it feels good. Stretch. Just do whatever feels good. And then just as you settle into a sense of stillness, then you just say, well, notice, just then start to bring your energy into the awareness into the sensations around your heart area. And just breathe in and out of that heart area. And just imagine, like, of course, imagine when the breath comes in from our nose or our mouth or whatever, but just imagine that it comes in and out of the chest. And just have a sense of just start to think about, what am I grateful for? It could be really simple things. Or what am I even appreciative of for? If grateful is too big, what do I appreciate? I appreciate that I'm sitting on a chair instead of the floor. I appreciate that I can breathe. I appreciate that I have a roof, that I have a house, that I have a refrigerator full of food. I appreciate the beauty of the sky. I appreciate, my garden or whatever it is. Just allow your mind to just ruminate on what you're appreciative of. The simpler the better, as long as it's genuine. Not anything that you feel like you should be appreciative or grateful for, but something that you genuinely feel appreciative of. And just let your mind kind of settle on that. And just see what happens if you smile. And just ask yourself, what would it be like if I brought this energy? What would it be like if I, brought this feeling of appreciation and gratitude into my life? How could my life be more based on appreciation and gratitude today? How could my life be more based on what I want, what I value, on kindness or love, and just kind of just imagine projecting into the future. You probably have an idea of the things that you're going to do today. Well, what would it be like if I was just a little bit more patient, a little bit more at ease, a little bit more, if I just breathed deeper, if I just went a little bit slower? And so I'm priming my pump, I'm priming my nervous system. And when I do this, and when I create a practice of doing this, what's going to happen is that just by setting that prime, just the way in the beginning we talked about how I looked around the room and then all of a sudden by saying white, I started seeing the color white. Now I'm going to start to see more reasons to be grateful or to be appreciative or to be patient or to be kind or to be loving or whatever it is. And I'm going to notice, and then my brain's going to go, oh, there's one of those moments. And you go, okay, yeah, breathe into it and really experience it, right? And then that it creates like a, we've all heard of the negative snowball effect. Well, the positive snowball effect starts to happen. Well, then I start to notice it more. I start to experience it more. I start to experience it more. I start to notice it more. I start to say, hey, this priming stuff, this meditation stuff, it really works. I start to do that more. So then I start to notice more and experience more and savor more and then prime more and on and on. And then I start to really have it become the major influence in my own life. Instead of my past being the major dominant influence in my life, instead of my trauma and my wounds being the major dominant influence in my life, instead of the people around me being the major dominant influence in my life, instead of my parents being the major dominant influence in my life, instead of the news or politics being a major dominant influence in my life, I am the major dominant influence in my life. And I prime my own nervous system according to what I value and choose and want to experience more of. All right. I went a few minutes over our typical 30-minute time. It's nice to see you all here. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments, or if there's anything in particular that you'd like me to address in these weekly talks. And I wish you all the very best and happy priming. Love you all and have a great day.